Africa Today, thank you so much for joining us and always being part of us. My name is Nahaba Kajur, and in the headlines. MPs want Signet to be disengaged from UBC. Nurses negotiate for salary enhancement in the coming budget. And members of parliament task Ministry of Health on Lubowa Hospital. In our sports today, Toro United relegated Arua Wasin Busoga United Bulls. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We start with one of our top stories. Members of Parliament on the Committee of ICT have asked government to legally disengage Signet from UBC. Now, the MPs recommended that government should create its own company that is fully owned by government with its own mandate, deliverables, and board secretariat that is different from UBC. We have the report.
The recommendation was part of the report on ministerial policy statement and budget estimates for the financial year 2022-2023 that was presented by the ICT Committee Chairperson Moses Magogo on Tuesday. According to Magogo, 7.5 billion shillings that has been allocated for UBC should be given to Signet to install the DTH services for the free-to-air services in order for television services to reach each and every corner of the country. The MPs also want the 2.5 billion shillings to be allocated to Signet and not UBC so that they upgrade their dilapidated National Television Operating Center in Kololo. Magogo said in the report that in the next financial year, funds in Part 2 and Part 3 should be withheld until Signet is disengaged from UBC. The MPs also suggested that after the disengagement, Signet should also revise its charges from the 12 million shillings that they currently charge per month to 5 million shillings per month. Signet was born after a digital migration policy recommended that the national broadcaster, Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, be split into two segments, the content generation arm UBC and signal distribution arm Signet.
Moving on, nurses and midwives in the country are demanding for salary enhancement ahead of the new financial year. Now, Justice Cherob says the government had earlier promised to enhance the salaries of all medical staff in the financial year 2022-2023. He praised that this promise be honored.
Addressing the media at the Ugandan Nurses and Midwives Union offices in Morago, the nurses distanced themselves from the ongoing information that they are to hold a strike come 25th April. Justice Cherob, the president of Uganda Nurses and Midwives Union, said much as they are not going to strike, their demands for salary enhancement are still on. Cherob further disregards claims that the union was bribed to back off from industrial action in pursuit of better working conditions. The union has also called upon the Minister of Health to resolve the concerns of the COVID-19 medical team, which was recently terminated from work despite earlier promises to retain them as permanent workers.
Away from that, the Minister of Health, Jane Ruth, has told MPs on the Committee on Health that one of the major causes of delays in completion of the Lubowa Specialized Hospital is lack of a contractor. Now, Acheng told the committee that construction works were going on under the supervision of the Office of the Prime Minister. We have the report.
According to the Minister of Health, Jane Ruth, it is true that the project has stalled for a while for several reasons that they have worked out with the developer, the President, the Office of the Attorney General, and Office of the Prime Minister. She explained that a steering committee was put in place to follow up on the construction, and a group of local engineers has been identified to supervise the work. The project engineer, who is also the Assistant Commissioner, Civil and Sanitary Engineering at the Ministry of Health, George Otim, however, said that only minimal workers are going on and that no work was being done at the main hospital block. Otim said he was irked by the government's laxity on supervision of the project. He said currently he is the only engineer supervising the project on top of his other duties of Assistant Commissioner. MPs say the Health Ministry owed Ugandans an explanation on the project, which they said has failed. They tasked the ministry to ensure there is visible progress by the end of the year. Legislators explained that many people lose their lives because of the high costs of seeking medical services abroad. MPs say the reasons given by Acheng during the meeting were not convincing.
Well, thank you so much, reporter. We'll take a quick break. We shall come back with the international news. Welcome back for the break. Is still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In international news, a commercial plane belonging to Rwanda national carrier Rwanda Air caused a crash scare at Entebbe Airport on Wednesday morning when it skidded off the runway. Now, the craft numbered 464 inbound from Kigali reportedly went off the runway at around 5 a.m. We have the report.
According to a statement from Uganda's Civil Aviation Authority, the situation was due to bad weather. The Civil Aviation Authority say that all passengers were disembarked safely and the situation is under control. Civil Aviation confirmed that another runway is now in use for small and light aircraft as they continue efforts to remove the Rwandan craft from the runway strip for resumption of normal activity. A statement by the Rwandan national carrier confirmed the development, but noted all passengers are fine. Rwanda Air said in the statement that all passengers and flight crew deplaned safely with no reported injuries. A similar incident happened in 2019 when an Ethiopian Airlines, the aircraft with flight number ET338, which was landing from Addis Ababa, skidded off the runway while landing at Entebbe International Airport. However, no one was injured.
Moving on, Ukraine's allies have pledged to send more weapons to help it defend against a renewed Russian offensive. Now, the US and others vowed to send artillery, anti-tank, and air defense aid to Kyiv during a 90-minute video call on Tuesday.
According to Ukraine, Russian forces have been attacking Ukrainian positions along the entire 300-mile front line since Monday. It was amid these renewed attacks that Western leaders met to discuss further military assistance for Ukraine. Following the meeting, the U.S. Defense Department said additional military aircraft and aircraft parts had been sent to Ukraine to increase their fleet size and repair others in Ukraine's arsenal that were damaged. The U.S. Defense Department added that the U.S. had not provided aircraft to Kyiv itself and did not provide details on which countries have provided the aircraft. President Zelensky has been appealing to the U.S. for Soviet-made air defense systems and fighter jets as an alternative to a no-fly zone over Ukraine. Last month, the U.S. refused a proposal by Poland to provide it with MiG-29 fighter jets, which it would then transfer to Ukraine. President Joe Biden, speaking to reporters after the meeting between Western allies, added that the U.S. is planning to provide a further military aid package to Ukraine of a similar size to the $800 million aid package he announced last week, according to U.S. media.
Moving on, the governor of the Central Bank of West Africa States has been appointed vice president of Côte d'Ivoire by President Alassane Ouattara on Tuesday. Now, Ouattara further appointed Patrick Achi to his premier post.
Tiamok Mailet Kone, who has headed the BCAO since 2011, is also an economist and a well-known technocrat. The position of vice president has been vacant since Daniel Kablan Duncan resigned on July 8, 2020. The day Prime Minister Amadou Gon Koubli died. Until his appointment on Tuesday, Tomoko was president of the Central Bank of West African States, also known as the BCAO. He also served between 2007 and 2011 as director of the Prime Minister's cabinet, then as Minister of Construction, Urban Planning and Housing, and finally as Special Advisor to the President of the Republic in charge of economic and monetary issues. The government stepped down in a long-expected move last Wednesday ahead of ministerial changes expected to place the emphasis on belt tightening. The Ivorian statesman Patrick Achi has been prime minister since March 2021, initially a member of Henry Konan Bedi's PDCI. He was Minister of Economic Infrastructure between 2000 and 2017 and President of the Regional Council of MI since 2013.
Moving on, 2 more combat helicopters and surveillance radars arrived in Mali on a Russian cargo flight. Now, the consignment brings to 8 the known number of helicopters that Moscow has provided under closer ties forged by colonels who seized power in 2020. According to Omar Diarra, Chief of the General Staff of the Malian Armed Forces, this is the manifestation of a very fruitful partnership since they started to work with the Russian state again. A source in the Defense Ministry said 4 similar deliveries were expected over the next 3 months. The objective of everything they do at the level of the General Staff of the Armed Forces is to work to keep their autonomy, to be able to defend their territory in an autonomous way. Meanwhile, the French army officially handed over the keys of the Gossi base in northern Mali to the Malian armed forces on Tuesday, a major step in the departure of the Barkhane anti-jihadist force from the country. The Gossi post, that has been around 400 containers, was handed back in its usual state with all the defensive devices, all the equipment, as well as the barracks infrastructure. The Barkhane force in the Sahel, which is France's largest current external operation, had mobilized up to 5,500 men on the ground in 2020. The base began its transformation last summer on the decision of Emmanuel Macron, who initially planned to reduce this number to 2,500 or 3,000 by 2023. Thank you so much, reporter. We take a quick break. We shall come back with business, health, and sports. Welcome back for the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In our business news today, Cape Verde is feeling the real of high cost of living excreted by the current war in Ukraine. Now, many people are now hoping that the government will step in to stem the ever-increasing prices of food, petrol, and other services in the country.
Prices in Cape Verde increased by 0.7% in February and accumulate a rise in 7.1% compared to the same month of 2021, indicating the latest data from Cabo Verdean Inn. From corn to olive oil, rice, as well as fuel, bread, sugar, flour and meat are some of the products whose prices Cape Verdeans considered exaggerated and call for intervention from the government and regulatory authorities. Some businessmen are now calling on the state to control the prices of commodities entering the country to curb traders taking advantage of the situation. Lenin Mendes, a Cape Verdean businessman, said that the rise in prices is worrying at all levels, especially for food products, adding that often producers and traders take advantage of crises to raise prices basing on the international situation in the Ukraine war. Fuel prices rose by 5% in April, the maximum limit stipulated by the government, but have accumulated an average rise of 42.6% in the last year, as well as a rise in 7% since last January. Cape Verde's Prime Minister Ulisses Correia Silva has previously ruled out the possibility of an increase in the national minimum wage due to the economic crisis.
In our health news today, agricultural workers in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Somalia are preparing for their most severe drought in 40 years. Now, this occurs as authorities warn that higher temperatures and less than normal rainfall were recorded by weather agencies in March and April this year. Take a look at this story. According to the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, rains will likely fail for a fourth consecutive year, triggering fears of increased cases of malnutrition, threats to livelihoods, and severe risks of 20 million people in the region. IGAD Executive Secretary Wakne Gebeyehu said that approximately 29 million people are facing high levels of food insecurity according to the latest experts' estimates, adding that already 15.5 million of their sisters and brothers are in need of immediate food assistance due to this drought. Drought and famine issues have become synonymous in the region, and approximately 1.4 million children under the age of 5 in the Horn of Africa are vulnerable to acute malnutrition. For Dr. Mahmed Shafi, director at Gode Hospital in Ethiopia, this is the worst drought they have witnessed in 20 years. Zero rainfall during the short rain season late last year and the ongoing drought during the current long rains season have already led to crop failures and livestock deaths, ballooning food prices, and intercommunal conflicts over scarce pasture and dwindling water resources. In sports news today, Toro United have officially become the first team to be relegated to the FUFA Big League after losing 1-0 to UPDF in Bombo. We have the report.
Ivan Ahimbisuwe scored the winner in the second half to leave Tororo United at the basement of the table with 10 points, 14 adrift of safety with only 12 points to play for. That implies their last 4 games will be a formality as they prepare for life in the second tier just a season after returning to the Premier League. UPDF moved to 8th position with 33 points after the victory. In Arua, Alfred Leku scored a second half brace to ensure Arua Hill beat Busoga United 2-0. The goals arrived in the 70th and 90th minute to break the Vistas' resilience, who dropped to 12th with 26 points after SC Villa won 2-1 against Mbarara City earlier on the day. The Congolo are now temporarily 5th on the log with 43 points, same as third-placed URA, who have a game in hand.
Well, thank you so much for being a loyal audience from where we started from. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We should keep updating you. It is TV Africa, the right to know.